What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. Tonight, October 17th, we have the Week 7 waiver wire run going on this evening. So we're going to hop into a screen share. I'm going to show you guys everything that I got on my waiver wire report. And, of course, we'll take questions from the chat room and kind of just, together figure out who is the best waiver wire pickups of the week. There is a link in the description, too, if you guys want to follow along with the waiver wire report. But otherwise, good evening to Justin. Hope you're doing well. Comes out hot with, would you rather have Chuba or Hunt? So both guys are basically in a 50-50 committee for the most part. Chuba dealing with Sanders. I would assume Sanders is going to be back healthy for week 8. But I'm of the belief that I think Chuba might be better than Miles Sanders. So if it is 50-50, Chuba is, I think he's the better back. And who knows, over the course of the year, you could hold on to Chuba and get some good numbers there. But they're an 0-6 football team. They're on bye this week. With Kareem Hunt, we think it's a decent football team. We know the defense is really good. The offense is a question, but we saw last weekend, let me actually pull it up. Let's see if we can find the numbers here. We'll go over to PFF, and let's take a look here at the snap counts from that game. Let's see, Sunday here. Alrighty, so Kareem Hunt last week. Jerome Ford, 38 snaps to Kareem Hunt's 28. They each ran 13 routes. Jerome Ford had 2 targets. Kareem Hunt had 3. 17 carries for Ford, 12 for Kareem Hunt. Now, I do want to say, I think it's hard to learn anything from this game. It kind of feels like fool's gold a little bit to me. They ran the ball 29 times. If Deshaun Watson was quarterback, I don't think that's going to be the case. So 12 carries seems like a lot for Kareem Hunt. Only 3 targets. If he doesn't score the touchdown, are we talking about Kareem Hunt on the waiver wire? I'm probably going to say probably not. So I feel better about Chuba Hubbard, the younger, better back, I believe. Good evening to Harris. Jordan Mason or Elijah Mitchell, non-PPR. Let's look at that as well here, because that's going to be a popular one on the waiver wire. And Jordan Mason had more snaps than Elijah Mitchell. He had more routes, and he had more carries. You can see the backfield split here. Looking, where'd it go? There we go. Jordan Mason got most of the 2-minute drill. No other running back got a 2-minute drill offensive snap. Third downs were still McCaffrey's. You saw Elijah Mitchell mix in on third downs. But I don't know. For me, it's probably Jordan Mason. Like, we know what Elijah Mitchell is. He gets hurt a lot. I don't really trust him. I think Jordan Mason's a strong, capable back. If I'm going to grab one, it's probably Jordan Mason here. And it's nice to see that he's out there in the 2-minute drill, which, bonus points for catching and things like that. And he didn't get the touchdown. Good evening to Daniel. Hope you're doing well. And yeah, let's get into it. So I do want to cover the full waiver wire report, guys. I've already kind of covered all the injuries in the video I did last night. So if you guys have questions on anybody of the injured players, we can get into that. But my top quarterbacks for the week, Sam Howell, man, he's been playing pretty good. He's had one bad game on the season, but otherwise I think he's been a top 12 QB in 5 of 6 weeks, which is pretty impressive. And this week they're getting the Giants in terms of, let's look at the fantasy points allowed stats here. Because I do think we're going to see Sam Howell started in a handful of leagues this week, just because we got 6 teams on bye. So just by the nature of that, we're going to see a lot of people looking for quarterback this week. And in terms of fantasy points allowed to the quarterback, the Giants do rank 12th. They allow 15.42 points per game here. So I'm probably going to take that 15 points from Sam Howell. He's been pretty hot lately. So he's the guy that's widely available in most leagues. Otherwise, I don't hate Matthew Stafford. The Steelers are coming off a bye, but it's at home. I don't hate Stafford. I'm open to Jordan Love. I think he's got a nice ceiling. And then the floor is pretty safe with Geno Smith. But if I had to rank them, I'm going to go Howell, Love, Geno, Stafford. Those are the top QBs that I'm looking at for the week. We'll move on to running back. If you guys have super flex questions, let me know. Harris is asking, drop CJ Stroud or Kenneth Gainwell non-PPR. if it's a one QB league, one of my beliefs is in a one QB league, you shouldn't be rostering two QBs. It really depends, though. He's on bye this week. If you need him for next week, I get it. Kenneth Gainwell only has value unless DeAndre Swift goes down at this point. So honestly, they're both probably droppable. You're going to be able to pick up another quarterback like CJ Stroud off the waiver wire. Gainwell's he's just a stash play at this point. So I guess at this point, I think I'm fine letting Gainwell go. If you're going to use Stroud coming up, I think that's fine. So we'll go with Gainwell here. Can we drop Justin Fields? I would need more context here, Harris. I would need to know what other quarterback you have. Like if you tell me you have Justin Fields and who's another quarterback popping off right now. If you have Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence or something like that, then I'd say fine. Yeah. If you have a locked-in starter every week, I'm fine with it. But I would need to know a little bit more information. I don't really want to drop Justin Fields, especially because, like, if he's out, you can just slide him to the IR and kind of play that game and hold out for a week or two with him while he comes back. So I probably wouldn't just yet. I would hold on to him. And, hey, yeah, there we go. We're on a 2-game win streak. Good job, Daniel. Rank these waiver wire targets. Mason, Evans, McLaughlin, and Mitchell. Any must-adds? Okay, so we're going to talk about the running backs here now. This will be a lengthy portion of the video, I think, because this is the most important position on the waiver wire this week. I firmly believe that. And at the top of my list, again, Jaylen Warren needs to be owned. But other than that, like everybody added Amari DiMercato. I'm listing him as a hold. I was actually very intrigued when I went and looked at the usage here because surprisingly, but DiMercato led the team in snaps. He ran 27 routes. He had 1 target and only 2 carries. Now, the surprise here was Damian Williams. So if you have DiMercato, I think he's still a hold. But otherwise, let's look at some of the other names that you have here. You have Jaleel McLaughlin. If McLaughlin's out there, I mean, he's kind of like a Jaylen Warren to me, where we know he's good and he looks better on his touches than Pirine or Javonte Williams do for the most part. So I think it's a matter of time where he starts to get more and more work as the season progresses. But we got to be patient. And I think there's an injury to Samaje Pirine where, if there's ever a situation where Javonte or Pirine misses a game, McLaughlin's probably a must start in that game. So I do think there's a couple names here that I'm looking at, Daniel. Mason, he's got value, but for how long? Same thing with Evans. McLaughlin is one of those guys that could have season-long value because there's nobody injured right now and he's already getting playing time, whereas Mason, Evans, and Mitchell are only getting playing time because CMC or Kieran Williams are hurt. So it's a tough question. It really depends on if you need a guy for this week or next week, or if your team's really good and you just need someone to stash. That changes things. If you don't need a starter this week, I'm going to say it's Jaleel McLaughlin. If you need a starter this week, and one of the harder parts of this equation is we don't know if Christian McCaffrey's playing or not. I saw a report that he could play. They're holding out hope that he can play. So it's hard to advise buying Jordan Mason, Elijah Mitchell, because if CMC goes out there and he plays, then these guys aren't very startable. So the way that I would look at Mason and Mitchell is I'm basically just buying the handcuff to CMC, and I know maybe not this week, but at some point, I'm probably going to use these guys if anything happens to CMC and he misses a game. So those guys require a little bit more patience. Their shelf life isn't as long either. It's probably McLaughlin for me. I just think long-term, and he has weekly flex upside right now anyways. Zach Evans, he hasn't been active a lot of games this year. Ronnie Rivers was playing ahead of him. You got Kieran Williams well ahead of him. I think if Kieran Williams returned next week, Zach Evans is pretty much dead. We might not see him, even get a touch if he's healthy. So with Evans, he's got a shorter shelf life, probably not as great of a ceiling as well. I don't know how good of a pass catcher he is. They did bring up Royce Freeman too. So it seems like Evans is more of a 50-50 split committee guy, which worries me a little bit. And then with Mitchell, again, he's just always kind of hurt. So if I'm ranking these guys, I think McLaughlin's the best long-term stash. He's probably also a decent flex this weekend if you need an RB2 with all the buys going on. Evans, like, it's hard because I really don't know what we're buying with Zach Evans. Assuming, Kieran's out and it's going to be, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a Zach Evans, Royce Freeman split where you're going to see Royce Freeman probably catching passes, third down work, and Evans is going to need to score a touchdown for you to make your day. Whereas Mason, say CMC's out, Mason and Mitchell are going to rotate. I think Mason's going to be the upper hand and get some of the third down passing work, but it's hard to say. So it's a tough question. I'm going McLaughlin, Mason, Evans, Mitchell is how I'd rank them. How will off waivers over T-Law? Interesting. Brian, if it's just for 1 week, like say you have Joe Burrow, right? If it's just for 1 week, Brian, I'm going to say Howell. If you need a starter for the rest of the year, though, I think you should grab Trevor Lawrence. That's the better long-term top 10 play over the course of the year. So if it's just a 1 week rental, I'll go Howell. If you need a quarterback, grab T-Law for the rest of the year. Harris, I have no quarterback. The only other person I can drop is Dotson. This league has no IR PPR. You can probably cut Dotson if you really want to. Honestly, I think Stroud, Gainwell, Dotson, they're all droppable in a 1 QB league. At this point, though, if Stroud's your only guy, I think I'd be more entertained into cutting Gainwell or Dotson. All right. Thinking about using James Cook in one of my 2 flex spots because they're playing New York Giants, using Aaron Jones and Brian Robinson in my RB spot. So I think you probably got to play. I'm playing Aaron Jones if he plays. I think they held him out just being cautious last weekend. I do want to look at the fantasy points allowed numbers here at running back real quick. Let's take a look at these together. So the Broncos allowing the most fantasy points per game to the running back. You're starting Aaron Jones with Brian Robinson. They have a good matchup against the Giants. Like the Giants have allowed almost 800 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns. It's a really good spot for him. And then with the James Cook Buffalo Bills, Patriots defense, man, hasn't really been doing well, so it is a good spot for Cook. I think he's a fine flex if you need it there, Sport Dog. Start Gibbs if healthy or Roshan if healthy, leaning Gibbs, no Fields. Start Gibbs if healthy or Roshan if healthy, leaning Gibbs, no Fields. That's probably the right call, and I think the absence of Montgomery might kind of force them to get Gibbs back on the field a little bit quicker. So I think you're right. If Gibbs plays, I'm playing Gibbs. And we don't really know what Roshan would look like as the full back. So I wouldn't mind just playing Gibbs if he's out there. I think that's a good call, Brian. Do you like Freiermuth this week? I do. Freiermuth should be owned in pretty much any 10 or 12-man league. Freiermuth should not be on the waiver wire. I still think he's a top 10 tight end that we drafted. And this week they're playing the Rams. The Rams have allowed 32 receptions, 414 yards, and 3 touchdowns to tight ends on the year. That's 15.23 points per game in a full PPR format. So I do like Pat Freiermuth this week. I know he's coming back from a hamstring, but hey, at tight end, man, like if I get 8 to 10 points out of my tight end, it's been a good day. So I like Pat this week. He just needs a couple catches or a touchdown. Do you like Foreman this week? Only if Roshan's out. Like, if Roshan's out, you still have to deal with Tyson Bagent, which makes him a questionable play. I'm assuming Justin Fields is not playing this weekend. So your best case for Foreman is that Roshan doesn't play. Because if Roshan plays, that's a 50-50 split at best. And it's probably not in Foreman's favor. So probably not a Deonta Foreman week. I do think he's a hold, though. He is a hold. You have a rookie coming off of a concussion. Things can happen. And who knows, maybe we start Foreman again. No way CMC's getting a full workload. I agree with that, Randy. But for me, say CMC plays, you can't play Jordan Mason. You can't play Elijah Mitchell. Those guys are both hold plays at best. And then, I just don't want to have people spend a lot of money on the waiver wire for these guys or burn their first claim. I do think Jordan Mason at this point, though, like we're getting to Halloween here. It's almost handcuff season. So I think it's a very good bet that Jordan Mason is probably the running back I'd rather own over Elijah Mitchell for the rest of the year. So With that being said, the injury seal is broken on CMC. I think this is the week to pick up Jordan Mason and just say, hey, I'm going to leave him on my roster, on my bench, until there's a moment to use him. So that's probably how I'm doing it. We dropped Johnston and Dotson. Yeah, we're going to pour one out. This one sucks. I don't get it. I mean, only one target for Dotson last weekend. He did drop a deep ball, I believe. And for some reason, the Chargers are just not using Quentin Johnston. Like, they're not scheming him anything. But I just want to cover more of the waiver wire report here, guys. I'm going to finish with the running backs. Again, a Roshan Johnson, if he's out there, he needs to be owned. Chuba Hubbard, I should have probably put some stars and bolded him. He's a must-own if he's available. Jamal Williams is returning. I don't know about this week. I saw he practiced today, so I'll keep an eye on there. If Tajay Spears is out there, I mean, I'd rather pick up Tajay Spears over Jordan Mason, over Elijah Mitchell, over some of the other guys that we've talked about, because he's got weekly upside even when Derrick Henry is healthy. So he's kind of in that Jalen Warren tier for me, where, like, in case of an emergency, I can whip out Tajay Spears as my RB2 and hope for 7 to 10 PPR points, something like that. And if anything does happen to Henry, we're sitting on something pretty good. So Tajay Spears is a priority for me. Continue stashing Zach Charbonnet. Pick him up if you can, especially because, like, Seahawks don't have their bye anymore. Like, if Kenneth Walker misses time, they can't hold him out and hope, for him to get healthier through a bye. So that's one thing to start looking at, is when a team has already had their bye, that's when it's wise to grab that handcuff. I do think Kareem Hunt should be picked up. I think Craig Reynolds should probably be picked up too, just in case Gibbs can't go. And then again, at this point, I purely view Jordan Mason as a stash handcuff that I'm holding on to the rest of the year. I would value a guy like Jordan Mason. I'm probably valuing him just as much as a Charbonnet, a Hubbard, a Jeff Wilson. He could have some monster starts for us in the future if CMC does miss a game. And then the thing with Zach Evans, again, I think he's more of a 1 to 2 week rental. But with Ronnie Rivers' injury, this is opening up the door for Evans to show what he can do in the NFL. And who knows, maybe when Kieran Williams comes back, Zach Evans shows out this game against Pittsburgh and he earns more work as the backup guy. So that one, it's more of a long-term play. He's a kind of a risky start this weekend, but I get it if you need it. And then some deep stash handcuffs here. Devin Singletary, aid into the Dameon Pierce workload. Kendre Miller still a stash. Elijah Mitchell a stash. Latavius Murray, still a pretty good stash here. I don't know if Leonard Fournette's going to sign there, but Latavius Murray playing just as much, if not more, than James Cook last weekend was a concern. And then Rico Dowdle still looks really good as the backup to Tony Pollard. So again, it's handcuff season, guys. You want to make sure you're getting these guys for free instead of having to buy them on the waiver wire. Daniel says, I'm starting Roshan at flex this week, so I'm leaning his stash on McLaughlin. By the way, Roshan is on track to play right. It sounds like it. So it's hard because it's Tuesday. Typically, the first waiver wire report day or the first practice report day is Wednesday, so we'll know more tomorrow. Basically, the only teams that don't report practice reports tomorrow are the teams that play Monday night. So the Vikings and 49ers, we're not going to get a good read on them until Thursday, but we'll know more tomorrow. I'm assuming he's going to play. Usually, it's just one game missed for a concussion, but you never know. We'll have to watch. Good evening to Jerry. But Howell or Geno, I think the guy this weekend is Sam Howell. I like Geno. I like the matchup for Geno, but it's a really good matchup for Kenneth Walker too. Like, would it surprise us if Kenneth Walker goes out and gets 2 touchdowns on the ground and Geno Smith gets only, 1 or no touchdowns passing? It's technically the 30th ranked run defense here in fantasy points allowed. So it's a Kenneth Walker smash spot, which just kind of lowers the numbers for me a little bit on Geno Smith. Geno Smith's a good consolation if you can't get Sam Howell, don't get me wrong, but I think I'm playing Sam Howell if I can get it. Just to start this week. Just if you're starting a guy this week with the quarterback, Howell off with. Yeah, if it's just this week, then Brian, I'm going with Howell. Trevor Lawrence off a short week and he's dinged up. I don't love it. ETN's been running hot, and I think this point total is like pretty low, so it shouldn't be a high scoring game tomorrow night or Thursday night. I can only cut Dotson. They are 2 different leagues. Okay. I like Warren this weekend. I think I'm hoping the Steelers had like a nice bye week and they realize they need to keep getting Jalen Warren the ball. The Rams are a good defense on paper this year. They've only allowed 2 rushing touchdowns all year. They've allowed 20 receptions and 111 yards through the receiving game. It's about 15.77 points per game to the running back spot. So if you divide that by 2, because they pretty much are, they're putting Najee and Jalen Warren in a 50-50 split, basically. So if we divide that by 2, that's 7 to 8 points as a floor. And you got the upside there if he gets more work as a receiver. I think Warren's a nice, safe, high floor play, probably for the rest of the year. I think we're going to see Jalen Warren continue to put up 8 to 10 fantasy points as a floor, and hopefully he gets more work. Sports Dog says he picked up Jeff Wilson on IR last week. Would you wait a week to use him or try to get him in for week 7? I'm always nervous to play someone in their first game back, especially if it's not like a stud. Like if you were telling me, if this was Austin Eckler, I would say, yeah, you play him. But it's Jeff Wilson Jr. You got Raheem Mostert running really hot. I think I would prefer to see what he looks like. You have Raheem Mostert playing well. You have Salvin Ahmed running well too. And it's a tough matchup against the Eagles. If this was a game where they were projected to win by 14 points, like they were last week against Carolina, I would say maybe. But I think I lean towards seeing what Jeff Wilson can do on my bench, and we get a better idea of what to look at going forward. Oh, it's Gibbs. It's Gibbs, Daniel. Sam Howell, Baker Mayfield, or Russ Wilson. I would rank them Sam Howell. It's kind of a tough matchup for Russell Wilson. The Packers are they rank 10th against the QB spot, about 14.68 points. Let's see. The Giants are allowing 15.42, and then you have Baker Mayfield going up against the Falcons. The Falcons defense kind of got lit up by Sam Howell last weekend. This one's in Tampa Bay, but Baker Mayfield didn't look good last week, and I know he's dealing with a shoulder injury right now. So I'm probably going to rank them as Sam Howell, Russell Wilson, Baker Mayfield last. I have Sam Laporta and my other tight end is Logan Thomas, but both have tough contests in week 7. Do I trust Laporta? I think we do, even though on paper, it's the most difficult matchup for tight ends for Sam Howell this weekend. I don't know if you guys can see that in there, but the Ravens are all the way down here at the very bottom. I'm actually going to get rid I've been meaning to do this, but I want to get rid of that banner. Where is the brand banner? Let me just get rid of that. There we go. So the Ravens down here at the bottom of the screen, they've allowed 22 receptions, 151 yards to the tight end spot. That's about 6 points per game. Laporta gets targets though. I'm not too scared of the matchups. I think Sam Laporta has proven himself to be a must start going forward, and I'm going to continue to leave him in there. Daniel says rank these defenses for this week. Packers, Commanders, Colts, Bucks, Saints, and Seahawks. Okay. So Packers, Commanders, Colts, Bucks, and Seahawks. Let's go look at I want to look at the spreads here. Okay, so we're going to go look at the game lines. So projected team total wise here, you have Tampa Bay is a good start. They're playing the Falcons. The Falcons are only projected about 18 points. It's in Tampa Bay, so I like that. Desmond Ridder has been turning the ball over. So they're the one that's sticking out to me as they're probably the safest. Even though the Lions were a good team last weekend, I think they only scored 20 points. So if the Lions score 20 in Tampa Bay, I think the Falcons are probably not scoring 20. So I like Tampa Bay probably the best here. Otherwise, I do like Green Bay. I think Green Bay is an interesting team. At Denver, though, is the only question mark. They're giving Denver 21.75 points, but who knows? Maybe they get some turnovers and some sacks and some other things. I simply do not trust the Commanders' defense. I know it's the Giants, but golly, they've played the Falcons and they've played the Bears the last 2 games, and over 300 passing yards in both those games. So I'm going to cross the Commanders off the list. I just don't trust it. And the Colts are a tough one. Going up against Cleveland, if Deshaun Watson's out, I'd say maybe. But that one, I need more info on that one. The Saints, it's a Thursday night football game. Again, Thursday night football games are usually lower scoring. And the thing I noticed today about this is the Saints, yesterday when I logged it, the Saints were -1 to beat the Jags. This morning when I woke up and looked at it, they were -3. So the line moved a little bit. Saints are okay play. Seahawks are another okay play as well. They're going to be hosting Arizona. So if I'm going to rank these, Daniel, I'm going to go Tampa Bay, Packers, Seahawks, Saints, Colts. And then I'm going to cross the Commanders off the list. So I like the Bucs this week. Do you still like Logan Thomas going forward? I like his weekly ceiling every week here. But yeah, he's hard to trust. I mean, at this point, it's going to be matchup dependent for me. This weekend he gets the Giants. The Giants have only allowed 1 touchdown to the tight end all year, 23 receptions, 284 yards. It's about 9.5 points per game. You know, I would need to know who your other tight ends are. Like if you're carrying 2 tight ends and Logan Thomas is one of them, I would need to know who your other one is. But I think he's still a hold. Randy says, what defense should I pick up? Can you give me your top 3? Giants or Commanders, Bucks versus Atlanta, Cleveland versus, yep. So we kind of just did all these. I think I feel pretty good about Tampa Bay. I feel honestly, Cleveland, man. If you have Cleveland available, Randy, like Cleveland's defense, I think at this point is just like we're starting them every week. We've seen them show up week in, week out. That's going to be the identity of this team going forward for the rest of the year. So if you can get Cleveland, I almost don't care who they play. They're playing Gardner Minshew this weekend. He just had a bunch of turnovers. To me, I'm adding Cleveland, and I'm probably just going to leave him in there every week until otherwise, until there's reason not to. So if you can't get Cleveland, Randy, Tampa Bay is probably my first choice. And then I think it's Seattle. Seattle looked pretty good last week going up against Joe Burrow in the Bengals offense. Like they held them to 17 points or something like that in Cincinnati. So if you can't get Cleveland, I'm going to go Bucks or Seattle. Would you be okay playing Warren over any of the waiver guys non-PPR? In a non-PPR, Harris, Warren's probably good for 50 to 60 yards all purpose. So I don't know if the other guys are going to be able to get touchdowns. So I feel like Warren is probably your safest play. Just lock in those, 50, 60 yards and hope for a long touchdown or something like that. I'm probably fine playing Warren just because I know he's going to get touches. Whereas I'm murky on Zach Evans. I'm murky on the 49ers situation. Who else did I put on my waiver wire report here? Mason Hunt, Reynolds, Evans. Like none of these guys have like clear like roles. We don't really know what's going on here. So I'm playing Warren over all 4 of those guys as of today. Browns or Saints D this week? It's Browns D, Jerry. And yeah, I think guys, if the Browns D is available in any of your fantasy football leagues, this is seriously the week to add them. I want to look at fantasy numbers here real quick. Not even fantasy numbers, just like real life numbers, because the Browns are kind of putting up like a historic defensive season early in this season here. So if I look at yards allowed here, and I'm just using ESPN's numbers here, total yards per game right now. The Cleveland Browns are allowing 200 yards per game. The next closest team is the Ravens at 260 yards. Points per game. There's only a few teams allowing fewer points per game, but the Browns are essentially allowing 15 points per game, 200 yards per game. I'm sure they have a lot of turnovers and sacks. Let's actually look at that and see if I can find it. I cannot, but to me, I'm starting the Browns, and they're going to get Seattle, Arizona. I'm honestly not terrified of Baltimore. We haven't seen, well, they lost 28-3 that game. So maybe not Baltimore, but it could be done. But you're starting them against Pittsburgh, Denver, maybe the Rams, maybe the Jags. But look at the final schedule here: Chicago, Houston, and the Jets. That's fantasy playoffs. So at this point, I'm stashing the Browns for the rest of the year. Cam Akers or one of the San Francisco running backs that Christian McCaffrey does not play non-PPR. If CMC's out, Harris, I'm playing Jordan Mason. Rams, Browns, or Lions. It's Browns all day. I don't love the Lions. I would rank those Browns, Rams, Lions there, Harris. Trade Gibbs and Flowers for Aaron Jones, pending health. Randy, I'm assuming your wide receiver depth is pretty good. If that's so, and you don't need Zay Flowers, like if Zay Flowers is your wide receiver 5, I would say do it. If he's your wide receiver 4, I would probably hold on to him and get you through some of the bye weeks. But I do think Aaron Jones, he's healthy. He's coming off a bye week. This is as healthy as he's going to be the rest of the year. So hopefully he can be a part of the Packers offense and flash some of that RB1 potential. So I'm open to it if you have wide receiver depth ahead of that. I've been using Jake Moody as my kicker for weeks, but of late his numbers have dwindled. Also running Detroit on defense. Would you trust him against Baltimore? Probably not. I don't. I still want to stash Detroit because I do think their defense is good. We know Lamar Jackson has, opportunities for turnovers and things like that. So I'm not in love with the play this weekend, but if you need to start them, I think I'm okay with it. I don't expect there to be a ton of fantasy or a ton of points scored in that game. Could go back and forth. And then, the thing with Jake Moody, they've just been scoring so many touchdowns lately. And then last weekend, he finally got his chance to kick some real field goals and he missed. So maybe it's okay to move on from Moody. I'm going to play him against Minnesota this weekend, though, in a dome. I'm going to lean into that matchup. I have Devonta, Waddle, Amon-Ra, Palmer, Flowers. So Devonta, Waddle, Amon-Ra, Palmer. Okay, so he is your 5. I think I do it then, man. If you can upgrade your RB2 spot with Aaron Jones, I think I like it. And you're buying him at the right time right now because, hey, if Aaron Jones comes out next week against Denver and he goes off for 30 points, something like that, might be the last time we can buy him at a reasonable price. Who would be your third ad after Geno Smith and Sam Howell? I have Jordan Love here. I don't know if Jordan Love is available on your list. I highlighted Matthew Stafford. So I have 4 plays here that I like. Desperation play would be Daniel Jones if he plays. It's actually, again, this Washington defense is pretty damn bad against opponent quarterbacks here. If we're looking at it here, only one more team has allowed more fantasy points per game with the quarterbacks, and that's the Chargers. So the Commanders, they've allowed 12 passing touchdowns. They even allowed 1 rushing touchdown here. So you're talking 21 points per game here. Daniel Jones is in play. Otherwise, Jordan Love's in play. Geno Smith's in play. That's probably it. I have Lamar, so I'm stashing Detroit and streaming. Makes sense. Do you like Judy? I do not like Judy. I think Judy's probably getting traded, dudes. I don't know if the Carolina Panthers are going to do it, but someone's probably going to trade for Jerry Jeudy in the next week or two. Honestly, I don't think you can start Jerry Jeudy this week. They're playing the Packers. Packers secondary is actually one of their strengths on that defense. They do rank 6th best against wide receivers here, so it is a tough matchup for Jeudy. Probably going to lean towards not getting him in the lineup. Can you take a look at Aaron Jones' schedule? It's good, right? Oh, the Packers' schedule coming up it's arguably like the best schedule in the NFL. Packers defense might be okay to stash and hold going forward. You're going to get some pretty weak offenses here and defenses. They're going to get Denver, Minnesota, the Rams, the Steelers. They get the Chargers, the Lions, and the Chiefs. So that's the tough part of the schedule. But after that Chiefs game, Giants, Bucks, Panthers, Vikings. That's your potential fantasy playoff run. So if you can weather the storm through weeks 11, 12, and 13, you kind of get the golden ticket road there to the fantasy playoffs here. So it's a nice schedule, Randy. What about Deshaun Watson? If Deshaun Watson's out there, I'm open to it. The matchup here for quarterbacks here, let's take a peek at that. Let's see. They get the Colts. Colts have been a team that we want to attack. Like, we want to play wide receivers and quarterbacks against them. I'm a little hesitant, though, in Deshaun Watson's first game back. Maybe they don't have him throw the ball a ton. I'm taking Howell, Love, Geno over Deshaun Watson still, if that makes sense. And then we'll put I would play Watson over Daniel Jones. How about that? Matt, good evening, man. Would you give Kenneth Walker for Devontae Adams or possibly Kamara for him? Might have to be one of those RBs in London. Personally, I wouldn't trade away Kenneth Walker right now. I think he's getting elite usage. If you're trying to sell him before he gets injured or something like that, I understand. But honestly, I don't love the usage of Devontae Adams. So, like, personally, Matt, I'm not buying Devontae Adams. Jimmy Garoppolo's got a back injury right now, so we're looking at potentially Brian Hoyer starting some games. And if Brian Hoyer isn't starting, then we're looking at Aiden O'Connell. So to me, I'm not excited about buying Devontae Adams. I would if I had to trade a running back, I'd rather trade Kamara than Kenneth Walker. But also, like, I might even prefer Drake London rest of season over Devontae Adams at this point. We're getting pretty close here. It's been a pretty frustrating last couple of weeks for Devontae Adams, and with the quarterback woes here, I'm probably looking to sell Devontae Adams if I'm being honest. So I'm holding Kenneth Walker over Devontae. Kamara for Devontae is close. But I'm curious in the chat room, like, would you guys rather have Drake London or Devontae Adams for the rest of season? I might be crazy here, but I've liked what I've seen out of Drake London. I know week 1 was bad, but Drake London he's having a really good season so far. He's improved on his numbers from last year. He's had 4 really solid games. Doesn't have the upside of a Devontae Adams each week, but he's been playing pretty steady. So I kind of value that consistency. So I don't get me wrong, man. I like Devontae Adams, but if I can sell Devontae Adams, I'm probably doing it right now. He's wide receiver 10 on the year, but we've had 2 bad games, like 4.9 and 8.5, and now we're looking at Brian Hoyer being the quarterback. We don't know what's going on with Jimmy Garoppolo. My point with this thought, Mike, is if Ritter isn't the starter, I know Taylor Heineke can be functional. Taylor Heineke allowed Jahan Dotson, he allowed Terry McLaurin to be fantasy relevant last year. So if anything, if Ritter gets benched, it's an upgrade for Drake London. So I think it's closer than you guys realize. I personally think the Raiders are in trouble if Jimmy Garoppolo is hurt seriously. We're looking at, again, Brian Hoyer for the rest of the year. I don't know. I think it's a good opportunity to sell Devontae if I can. But if you have to do it, like, I'm okay with it, but I'm not giving up Kenneth Walker. What about Zay Flowers' schedule? Isn't that pretty great though too? Let's take a look at that. Ravens schedule. Ravens are going to get the Lions, the Cardinals, the Seahawks. The Browns are tough. Bengals are tough. Chargers, great matchup. The Rams, kind of tough. It's kind of a mixed bag. I mean, he's got some tough matchups towards the end of the year. I like the next 3 matchups coming up, but I wouldn't say it's a great matchup schedule for the rest of the year, though. Would you trade away Pitts and Deontay for Laporta? Would you trade away Pitts and Deontay for Laporta? My other receivers are Olave, Garrett Wilson, Puka, Rashi, and Osborne. It feels like a lot, man. Personally, I don't like tight ends. I really hate tight ends. So I think if it's me, all I want is 7 to 10 points out of my damn tight end. I I know you have receiver depth here, but one of my biggest things is making sure I have depth for the playoff run. There's going to be more injuries, things like that. So I'm probably not doing it. Pitts and Deontay for Laporta. I'd probably continue to roll with Pitts and hold on to Deontay there, Mike. Who do I cut if I keep Jeff Wilson Jr., Logan Thomas, Josh Palmer, Roshan, Gabe Davis, Nico Collins, or Garrett Wilson? Tough decision for me. Who do I cut if I keep Jeff Wilson? You just cut Logan Thomas. Tight ends are replaceable. We got Devontae. Would you be okay dropping Warren if needed? Nope. I'm not drafting. I'm not dropping Jalen Warren. And yeah, I don't know, man. I'm very concerned about the Raiders and Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, if this offense is Brian Hoyer, to me, Devontae Adams drops a tier. Like, he's now a wide receiver too. He doesn't have that top 10 wide receiver upside anymore. And again, Ritter's been playing well enough to get decent Drake London numbers. And honestly, like, if Desmond Ridder gets benched for Heineke, like, we should be excited for Kyle Pitts for Drake London. And it doesn't matter if they're cupcake defenses or not. It matters that he's performing. Zach Evans or Kareem Hunt this week and rest of season. I'll take Kareem Hunt. I don't really know much about Zach Evans yet. I think he can be a decent running back, but the fact that Kareem Hunt's already in a timeshare with Jerome Ford, I like that. I don't know if Zach Evans can force a timeshare with Kieran Williams and then Ronnie Rivers when he returns. I feel a little bit better about Kareem Hunt here. Yeah, don't drop Warren. Should I target Mark Andrews? I have Goddard. Yeah, I mean, if you can upgrade Goddard to Andrews, I'm fine with it. I do think Goddard's going to continue to play well. He's now he's had a floor of like 8 to 9 points in half the games this year. And of course, he had the big boom game. So for me, he's had 4 usable weeks out of 6. I'm fine with Goddard. I'm fine with the way Goddard's been producing. But if you can get Mark Andrews, I think he's for sure an upgrade. Would you trade Jordan Love, Aaron Jones for Goff? No. Jordan Love, Aaron Jones for Goff? No. No, I would not do it. If you have Justin Fields, would you trade for Brock Purdy? A lot of trade questions tonight, guys. Sure. I'd rather, for me, I am more likely to build my team through the waiver wire than I am likely to trade. If I have to go trade, I'll do it. I don't think Brock Purdy's a quarterback that I would trade for. If I'm trading for a quarterback, I want it to be like a top 5 elite quarterback here, whereas Brock Purdy, a good week for him is around QB 10. You know, he's more of a QB 2. So I'm probably not trading for Brock Purdy. I'd rather stream quarterback at that point. He's getting there. We have to watch the health of Ramondre. So let's actually look at that. So he comes out, gets 39 snaps to Zeke's 23 routes, 6 targets, 11 carries. This is kind of the usage we signed up for. We wanted him to be a receiving back, and he finally kind of outplayed Ezekiel Elliott here. So this chart looks pretty good. You can see Ramondre getting 2-minute work. You can see him getting 3rd downs, kind of even on the short yardage, but good early downs, and he had a goal line opportunity. So I think I'm starting to trust him more with this game. Now, they're playing Buffalo this week. So if he comes through this weekend, I'm going to say, yeah, we can trust him. But this is his prove it week to me. I think there's an opportunity to maybe buy low on him. If you're feeling like the tides are turning here for Ramondre, I'm open to buying low on him here. What about Jacoby Myers? And that's my thing with that. That's kind of my issue with Devontae Adams is honestly, like, Jacoby Myers has been the better player for almost every game that Jacoby Myers has played in this year. It's actually not looking good for Devontae Adams. You can see they're running the same snaps and the routes. Jacoby Myers has 2 more targets. And if you think about the Monday Night Football game 2 weeks ago, Jacoby Myers was the primary target. So I like Jacoby Myers. I don't know what the question is here, but I like Jacoby Myers. Drop Tank Bigsby or Samaje Perine. They're both droppable, Harris. Arthur Myers, good for hanging out. Thank you. Would you drop Logan Thomas, pick up Musgrave, Jonnu Smith, Mayer? We're tight end hopping here. You know, we had one bad week with Logan Thomas. As soon as we drop him, he's probably going to go 6 for 90 and 2 touchdowns or something stupid like that. But if I'm playing a tight end this weekend, I think the safest play is Jonnu Smith, just because Jonnu's been hot and they've been really using the 2 tight end sets pretty well. But let's look at the tight end points here. Let me pull that up for you. So the Broncos have allowed the most tight end fantasy points per game. So Luke Musgrave coming off a bye is probably a really safe play. You have Jonnu Smith. It's a middling matchup here, going up against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is yet to allow a touchdown to tight ends, but they're still allowing about almost 10 points per game there. So his floor is about 5 to 6 points. And then with Mayer, I don't think we're starting Michael Mayer yet. I think we're paying attention though. So if you want, I think it's a good week to like pick him up and put him on your bench because, hey, if he goes out and catches, again, another 5 for 75 and maybe a touchdown this time, everyone's going to be looking to pick up Michael Mayer. So I like being ahead on Michael Mayer. The thing is they're playing the Bears this weekend. So it's a really good matchup for Mayer. So I like the rookie tight ends on this one. I'm going to say Musgrave is probably the guy that I'm picking up, though, over the 3 here that you listed. Would you still trade Garrett Wilson and Adam Thielen for receiver if you have Montgomery and Christian McCaffrey? If we could pause on the trade question, guys, this is supposed to be a waiver wire program, so I'm gonna answer this trade question, but let's take it easy on the trades. Would you still trade Garrett Wilson and Adam Thielen for receiver if you have Montgomery and McCaffrey? Would you still trade Garrett Wilson and Adam Thielen for receiver if you have Garrett Wilson, Adam Thielen? You probably need some running backs at that point. I don't know if Montgomery's going to be back for week 8. They do have a bye week at some point, so I think Montgomery's going to be fine for the long term. Same with McCaffrey. But honestly, you're probably better off holding on to Garrett Wilson and Adam Thielen right now. I think they're both playing hot. Let someone come to you if you're gonna trade these guys away. I'd probably go for a running back with those guys on your team. Yeah, we're overreacting a little bit. DK Metcalf has played fine. He's been dinged up. I think that's been his biggest issue. And from what I've seen, I mean, DK Metcalf currently wide receiver 36 on the year. He's not like being a target monster, but the fact that he scored double-digit points in every game this year bodes pretty well. He's got 2 touchdowns through 5 games. I think more of those are coming. So for now, like, he's not playing great, but he's getting double digits. He's being a decent asset for our fantasy lineups here. It's both Montgomery and McCaffrey don't play. Who would you put on the IR? It doesn't matter which one we put on IR. I think Montgomery's probably likely. If someone's going to miss more than 1 game, it's probably Montgomery. So he would probably be the guy I put on IR. Any running back or receiver you like as a stash? Yeah, let's actually look at some of those names here. Some of the running backs that I'm looking at stashing this week, again, I'm viewing Jordan Mason as a stash because, yes, if McCaffrey doesn't play, Jordan Mason's a good play, but the injury seal's broken on McCaffrey. If he goes out and plays on Monday night and gets hurt again, then we're all talking about Jordan Mason on the waiver wire again. I do think Tajay Spears is a PPR stash. Otherwise, these guys are kind of low-end names here. And these guys are maybe an injury away, but I was pretty concerned with how much Devin Singletary played over Dameon Pierce last week, and I'm not sure why that happened. It was before the bye week, so stashing Devin Singletary might be in play because who knows when they come back from their bye week 8, and if it's the same split that we saw last weekend, Singletary might be an RB2 flex play the rest of the year. So I think Singletary's in play. I still want to stash Kendre Miller. I think Latavius Murray's probably a stash as well. And then Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle continues to look good as a backup running back for the Cowboys. And then I don't know about Keaton Mitchell here. I just know the Ravens have been pretty annoying. We haven't even talked about wide receivers yet on the waiver wire, but deep stashes, I think Mingo, the rookie receivers, Mingo, Reed, Wilson, these guys are all like super like 12-team deep stashes. Otherwise, if you play in PPR leagues, like Wan'Dale Robinson's one of the best pickups you can make right now. Curtis Samuel, Rashee Rice. If Rashee Rice is available in any of your leagues, I think he's the guy. Justin Watson's out for a little bit. I can't remember what his injury was, but he got hurt last Thursday night. That's going to open up a bunch of snaps, routes, targets. So to me, I'd rather own Rashee Rice over Sky Moore, over Kadarius Toney. It looks like Rice is probably going to be the guy that I'd rather hold the rest of the year. So he's really attractive. Again, Curtis Samuel, Josh Downs, we talked about him last weekend, but for sure Wan'Dale, for sure Rashee Rice. And then some of those rookies here. What's your view on Dameon Pierce? So let's get into this one because this is a great question, Harris. It was, and again, I'm not sure why this game went this way, but Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary, week 6. We see Singletary with 34 snaps. Dameon Pierce with 21. Routes run 18-7. Targets 2-0 for Dameon Pierce. This is his first game without getting targets. And then the carries 12 for Singletary, 13 for Dameon Pierce. So interesting. Dameon Pierce has been the lead back in every game so far this season. Here's the running back chart usages. Short yardage was Devin Singletary. Third downs was Devin Singletary and Mike Boone. No third down or short yardage work for Dameon Pierce. Now, Dameon Pierce still got the goal line touches, which is frustrating because he had 5 touches and he couldn't find the end zone. Like every time he got the ball, he just got blown backwards by like 3, 4, 5-yard losses. So I'm not sure why this happened. Maybe they were just being cautious with Dameon Pierce heading into their bye week and they wanted to let Devin Singletary get some blows here. So for me, I'm still liking Dameon Pierce, but he's probably getting pushed more towards an RB3 at this point. I think if you have to start him, he can still be a low-end RB2 play, but he's probably on our benches for week 8 until we see something that looks a little bit more like what we paid for. So I'm pumping the brakes, slightly cautious here, but I'm optimistic on Dameon Pierce. This might be a buy low opportunity over the bye week if you want to just low ball an offer for Dameon Pierce. You could be able to get a running back for pretty cheap here. And no problem, Arthur. Thank you for your question and for hanging out tonight. Starter hold Deontay Johnson this week. So I'm waiting for a few more. It's Tuesday night, so it's more difficult. But we're gonna hear more about him at practice tomorrow, Thursday, Friday. If we're hearing, no limitations, he's looking healthy, 100%. Fat, best shape of his life, all that stuff, we're starting Deontay. So unless you have other options that you're really good with, Daniel, I think we're starting Deontay Johnson this week. Would you do any of these guys over Tutu Atwell? If we're talking Rashee Rice, Wan'Dale Robinson, yeah. All the guys that are highlighted here, I'd rather have over Tutu Atwell because Downs is the wide receiver 2 on his team, and Tutu's the number 3 on his team, and he's more of a deep threat. He doesn't have like Wan'Dale Robinson's role is like short area, quick targets. He's going to lead the team in targets and catches pretty much every game, whereas Tutu, he's more the vertical threat. He's going to get you 2 for 90 and a touchdown, or he's going to get you 1 for 7 yards, something like that. So he's more volatile. I'd rather have Wan'Dale Robinson, who's had a lot of catches to start his season here. I think he's got 16 catches in the last 3 games, so he's a safe PPR floor. And then otherwise, Rashee Rice, Curtis Samuel, Josh Downs, those are the names that I'm looking for deep on the waiver wire this week. Rice for Palmer. I'm fine with that. I actually thought Palmer looked really good last night. I don't know about you guys, but overall, just watching that Chargers game, I thought Palmer's exciting. I mean, let me try and get back to, let's look at these numbers from last night here. So Josh Palmer comes out, gets 7 targets. He leads the team in snaps and routes. He's locked into a starting role. Quentin Johnston's not really a threat to Josh Palmer. And honestly, Josh Palmer had a touchdown called back. He had 1 or 2 other big plays called back. So the night could have been pretty huge for Josh Palmer. I want Josh Palmer. I'm probably ranking Palmer as a top 36 receiver rest of the year. I think he should be your wide receiver 3 flex most weeks. going forward. What would you do? Is that Jaden Reed? Jaden Reed and Atwell are both very similar in terms of value. They're both the kind of number 3 target on their team, sometimes the number 4 target. That one's more of a preference call there, Harris. To me, they're in the same tier, the same bucket. I might prefer Jaden Reed because he's a slot receiver. And we've seen Christian Watson have injuries before. We've seen Romeo Doubs have injuries before. If we see Jaden Reed's back as the number 2 receiver, he's a fringe flex player. So I would say Jaden Reed over Atwell for me, but we're close. Yeah, and he had the touchdown called back in the first drive of the game too. And the thing that I like about Palmer is he just looks the part of a really good wide receiver. So I think it feels like we got one off the waiver wire. If you guys were able to get Josh Palmer, I'm not going to call him a league winner, but I'm going to say that he's probably a guy that's going to be in your fantasy lineups a lot the rest of the way, because this is going to stick. This is going to stick here. So I like Palmer. What is your view on McKinnon? McKinnon to me is I don't like having McKinnon on my teams because I'm never going to feel good starting him. We're going to risk getting 3 points if he plays. You're hoping for that touchdown, that big pop game. So it's kind of like playing with fire. Let's look at I'm looking for the Thursday night recap. Here we go. So McKinnon still runs a lot of routes, 18 routes, 5 targets. That's fine. Doesn't get any carries though. So we're basically hoping for a touchdown when we play him. He's a PPR league only player. Like if it's half PPR or if it's standard league, I don't want him on my team. He's a deep end stash play at best. I'm dropping Jerick McKinnon for guys like Mason, Hunt, Spears, Roschon for sure. I'd rather have Justice Hill, Charbonnet. I'd rather have guys that can be for me. I'd rather have a guy that's the backup on his team, but if the starter goes down, he can be the starter. Because even if Pacheco goes down, McKinnon's not the starter. He's locked into that role where he doesn't get a lot of carries, but he gets a lot of passing targets. So I'm not a super big fan of that role for fantasy. Logan Thomas for Rice, yes sir. Would you roster Zay Jones? I think at this point, he's not going to play this weekend, so leave him. I would leave him on the wire. That way, we're not clogging our roster, for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, holding on to a player that's already played hurt. I don't think he's playing on Thursday night, so if you like Zay Jones, you might be able to get him for free next week. There, Harris. I have to go. See you. Have a good night, Daniel. I'm also going to be getting out of here shortly, guys. So if you have any final questions, please let me know. I'm just going to go over my tight ends real quick here on the wire. I still believe in Jake Ferguson. Jake Ferguson's usage last night was pretty good. Let's see here. Where is it? So Ferguson last night, he runs 32 routes. That's just as much as Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup. So he's locked into a starter. The targets just didn't go his way. We had 10 Michael Gallup targets last night. That should be probably down to about 4 or 5, and some of those are going to go back to Ferguson. So I still like holding on to Ferguson. Dalton Schultz is an ad. Pat Freiermuth needs to be picked up. And then, these guys are these are your playing with fire tight ends. Logan Thomas, Dalton Kincaid. You just don't know what you're going to get. But I think we're at this point where you want to add rookie tight ends. So Luke Musgrave, Dalton Kincaid. As the season goes on, maybe we start to see more from these guys. Michael Myers, another one. And then Taysom Hill, guys. Let's look at the Taysom Hill usage before we get out of here tonight. Let's see. Falcons. No, it was the Saints game. My bad. Let's see. So Taysom Hill ran 34 routes, 8 targets, 1 carry. I believe he even threw a pass in this one. So no Juwan Johnson. They basically featured Taysom Hill. So I'm keeping my eye on this one. I think I wouldn't recommend starting Taysom Hill on Thursday Night Football, but hey, if he comes out and he gets another 8 targets, we're all going to be talking about Taysom Hill on the waiver wire. So if you have room, I don't hate adding Taysom Hill before Thursday Night Football to see what we got. Should Wanda Robinson be rostered in a dynasty league? Oh yeah, for sure. Oh hell yeah. Yeah, man. Wandale was I think he was a second or a third round pick in the actual NFL draft. Wandale should be scooped up, especially if it's full PPR. I've got him in a couple of leagues, and I'm excited about it. I hope he can stay healthy because it seems like they have a role that they really like for Wandale Robinson. Essentially, Harris, they're using the role that Wandale's in for them is kind of the role that Cole Beasley used to be in under Brian Dable in Buffalo. So it's a good role. And honestly, Wandale's a little bit more creative and better in space than Cole Beasley. So I like Wandale Robinson. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for me tonight. I will be going live tomorrow evening. We'll do my start sit charts. Those are up on the website as well if you guys want to take a peek at those. But tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central Time, come with your start sit questions. We'll go over all the games, and we'll just talk about your waiver wires as well. But anyways, enjoy. Good luck on your waiver wires, guys. We'll see you tomorrow evening. Peace.